Siman Aleph, Sif Yud, Bei Shmuel, Sif Cotton Chaf Gimel, Kegoyni Status. That Amor had said that if a woman becomes mentally incapable of receiving her get, then there's place to be matir, Cherem de Rabbeinu Gershon. Says the Beis Shmuel, Kosovo Kolboy, the Kolboy ever writes that De'en Lahatir, there are no circumstances in which a person could be matir a woman, matir Cherem Rabbeinu Gershon, Ela al pi mea noshim. Only if there are 100 people, migimel kehilos, from 3 congregations, 3 communities, migimel arotzes, from 3 different lands. So what happens is Reuven is married to Sarah, and for some reason Sarah is mentally incompetent, for example, to receive a get. She's in a coma, nishdogedacht, and Reuven cannot, wants to continue with his life. He wants to be Mekayim the mitzvah of pure Reviyah, and so he wants to take another wife. What he could do is he could go to, it's called Hetamei Rabbanim, colloquially, that he could go and get 100 Rabbanim to be matir him in the Cherem. This is a condition that was written into the Cherem itself, that you could undo the Cherem through a Hetamei Rabbanim. It's interesting to note the diuk in the lashon of the Kolboy. The Kolboy didn't say Mea Rabbanim, he said Mea Noshim. It seems that the Kolboy was of the opinion that as long as these people had Seichel HaYosher, if they were clear thinkers and learned in halacha, even if they don't have smicha, they're not officially Rabbanim or practicing Rabbanim, nonetheless, they can still be counted towards the 100 that are required to be matir the person. Also, it says that they have to come from 3 different lands. And there is an opinion that even if the 100 Rabbanim, or these 100 people, if they congregate in one place, so let's say there's a rabbinic conference, and at the rabbinic conference they have international Rabbanim from internationally come together in a single conference. You can't go around and poll all those rabbis. They have to be in their actual country, according to some opinions, when they make their determination if this person should be allowed to go and marry a second wife. Because the reason for that is because the purpose of getting 100 Rabbanim is to place the strain and the responsibility on the husband to travel from place to place and collect these signatures, and that will serve as a preventative measure for having this taking place, and it will slow down and discourage this process. So it has to be a tiresome, burdensome process. The Chassam Sofer says in Chelek Gimel Siman Daled that the Gzeira of Rabbeinu Gershom was only you could find a Hetamei Rabbanim only if there is a compelling reason to allow the man to get married. So basically, practically, what happens is the based in the place where this person resides, they'll draw up a psak halacha and state their reasons why they feel that this man should be allowed to take a second wife. That psak halacha has to be read and understood by all the 100 Rabbanim or Anoshim, and then they have to agree to that psak, to that reasoning. You can't just say in a vacuum that these people have to be that the Mei Rabbanim don't work in a vacuum. Also, in Tshuvas Maram ben Baruch, the Tshuvas Maram ben Baruch, Siman Kuf Nun Gimel, towards the end of his Sefer, says over there that these 3 lands have to be under 3 separate governments. 3 separate kings or governments. They have to be 3 separate republics. And the reason for that is basically the idea is you want to get different cultures, people who come from different perspectives and backgrounds, to give their agreement. By the way, according to that Tshuvas Maram Ben Baruch, going to 3 states in the United States would not would not be sufficient, wouldn't be Shalosh Aratzos, and you would have to go to 3 separate countries where there's a separate federal government in each place, and that only is sufficient to create the diversity that's required for these 100 signatures. Now, the Beis Shmuel will bring a machloikis between the Darkei Moshe and the Bach. The Darkei Moshe takes the view, we'll see it inside, but Darkei Moshe kosav de'ein tzarich bizman hazeh lahatir al yedei mei anoshim. The Darkei Moshe takes the view that you do not need this process of getting 100 rabbanim to sign and agree that this person can marry. Because we've already passed Elef HaChamishi, the expiry date of the cherem has been reached. And now it's only customary that we don't allow polygamy. Therefore, the Darkei Moshe says that Ramah lumps together 2 separate dinim. The one din yachdov together. The one din kishenishtatis. The one din is if the woman becomes mentally incompetent. Oikshuhu min adin lagarsha, and the other din is when he is halachically bound to divorce her. For example, in the case where she's an overes al das, where she ceases to observe Torah mitzvahs. So says the Bach Shema Minah Shneim Shavin. So you see that both the case of nishtatis and the case of minadin legarsha are given equal weight in the Ramah. Ukshuhu minadin legarsha leitikin rabbeinu gershom. And we know that if halacha compels a person to divorce a wife, like in the case she's an overes al das, Rabbeinu Gershom's takana never applied, never extended to cover that circumstance. K'moshe Kosa b'Siman Kuf Tes Vav, as we'll learn in Siman Kuf Tes Vav. So that's the Darkei Moshe. So the Darkei Moshe says in our times we can dispense with hetemei rabbanim, and even if there's any compelling reason to allow him to go, we allow him to go against the mere minhag at this point in time, not to allow polygamy. And we allow him to get married to a second wife. Mio Bach Kosav, but the Bach argues and says, Kabbalah hi migdele ha'olam shiatziu ha'inyan lifnei ha'gdolim shebeisar ha'dor. It is a tradition that we have from the greats of the world, the great halachic minds of the world, that they suggested in front of all the greats of multiple generations, v'yaskimu, and they all were in agreement, behetamei rabbanim, that we should still retain this concept of hetamei rabbanim, v'gam yashlish sachak ksuva. And the Bach says not only that, but when the person is about to go and gather the 100 signatures of agreement that he needs for the hetamei rabbanim, he also has to write up the get first, and he has to put aside the value of the ksuva times 3. So he has to triple the value of the ksuva and put it in trust for the woman. So let's say she's become mentally incompetent, she's in a coma. He has to take triple the value of the ksuba, put it aside to take care of her financial needs. V'nedunya v'tosefes ksuba, not only is it the value of the ksuba, but also the nedunya, anything that she brings into the marriage, v'tosefes ksuba, and any additions that are mentioned in the ksuba. So you take all of that amount and you multiply it by 3, and that is placed biyad ha-beisdin, in trust in the hands of the Beis-Din, ve'acher kach yisa acheres, and only thereafter, after he gets his 100 signatures, and he's put aside this vast sum of money, triple the amount of the ksuba, is he allowed to then go and marry someone else. V'oid kosav b'siman kuf yutes, she'yitn haget biyad shliach ilacha, and it's in addition to that, another requirement is that the get needs to be given to a shliach la'ilacha. Shliach la'ilacha means if for whatever reason a husband cannot give a get to his wife directly, so he appoints a shliach la'ilacha, he gives the get to the shliach, and this shliach is the one who either appoints another shliach or himself gives the get to the wife. Shehi haget biyadei ad shetishtafe v'chayev So he gives the get to this shliach lehilacha until the wife improves. Either if she's mentally incompetent, she becomes competent again, or until she repents her ways and she comes back to living a Jewish life. If she's mentally incompetent, he has to set aside a house for her to live. She has to have a shelter, and he has to ensure that she's protected and she isn't abused because of her fragile mental state. She could be taken advantage of, and it is the husband's responsibility to put safeguards in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. And he also has to sustain her and support her. If you look, I explained, and later on in Siman Kuf Yutes Sif Cotton Ches, the Beis Shmuel will explain a certain question that he has for on this, and we'll leave it for then. Now, what happens in the case that a person doesn't have the financial wherewithal, is not wealthy enough to provide her triple the value of her complete ksuva? So in such a case, kosev b'tshuvas tzemach tzedek, the tzemach tzedek, in the tshuvas tzemach tzedek, it's written that, Siman Samach Zayin, the yesh takana, the following advice. The krevea yimkuru aksuva, that her relatives should sell the ksuva libaila to the husband, betoivas hana, for a highly discounted amount. What does toivas hana mean? Toivas hana is an inyan that has to do with truma and maestris, that there's a certain very minor, slight benefit that a person has when he provides trumas and maestris to a specific individual, kohen. So really, giving trumas and maestris to a specific kohen is the prerogative. So the person who has a field and he takes trumas and maestris from that field, if he gives it to a certain kohen, he develops a relationship with that kohen that could have some tangible benefit to him. But that benefit is called toivas hana, a very small benefit. That term is used here in terms of a ksuba, that a woman is allowed to sell the value of her ksuba as a future to another person. So what happens? Let's say there's a woman and she has a ksuba, and in her ksuba it says that in the case that of her predeceasing her husband, or of her husband divorcing her, that he'll pay her 200 zuz. She could go to another man, not her husband, another man, and tell that other man, I'll give you the value of the ksuba. So in other words, in the event that I actually do get divorced from my existing husband, and I can claim the ksuba, you'll get the full 200 zuz. But it's a risk. If my husband predeceases me, then there'll be no... the ksuba will never be able to be claimed, and it will have zero value. So because of this risk, it's a gamble for the other person. So he pays a nominal amount for the ksuba. Let's say he pays 10 zuz, and he takes the risk that there's a 50-50 chance that at some point in the future he'll be able to accept 200 zuz. This is called toivas hana, and it's a very small amount based on the entire ksuba. So here the question is, so the answer is over here. The man cannot afford to pay triple the ksuba. So what is he, and adhere to how Hetemei Rabbanim works. So what does he do? They sell the toivas hana to the husband himself. And they ensure that, yes, it's not triple the value of the ksuba, it's some nominal amount. But that nominal amount has to be sufficient to yiten la mezenes, to give her, to sustain her and to support her, but not the full triple amount. And this is sold to her al das Beis Din. So the Beis Din step in for where she's incapable of doing that, and they sell it to her. And in any case, after she is healed and she becomes mentally competent again, chayev legarsha miyad, the man must immediately divorce her, because obviously he can't remain married to two women. He has to divorce her immediately.